Okay, so for today, what we'll do is we'll continue on what we already discussed overall from the deployment. And what we'll do is proceed with the indexer. So just as a quick overview, what we have or what we plan to do is we are going to have an Indexer-1 installed, Indexer-2 installed during the initial setup of the environment. And then once this environment is already, we are going to simulate that eventually 3 months from now on, we want to add another indexer. So after this setup is completely built, at later stage, we'll come up and add the Indexer 3. However, for today, we are not installing the Indexer 3, so our cluster is going to be Indexer 1 and Indexer 2. I know, and you also should know that from the overall deployment that we'll be installing Manager 1, Manager 2, and we have a cluster of managers. We have the Dashboard 1, Dashboard 2, and we have the cluster of dashboards. For this session, we only focusing on the indexer installation. Right? So we'll install Indexer 1, Indexer 2, we'll build the cluster among those two nodes and verify that the cluster is fully functional. Okay? So that being said, as of now, what I have is a Linux instance machine, Ubuntu Linux, called Lab Indexer 1, and I have a Lab Indexer 2. These are two separate Linux machines, and we'll make these an indexers, and then we'll add them to the index cluster, and that is going to wrap up the day. Okay? So now that you know what we are going to do, I will... Oh, important things to mention. When you building your Lab 1, Lab 2, is important that you already have an idea about your infrastructure, how it's going to look like. So for my infrastructure, I have one interface, and this interface I call is dedicated for management of the box, is as a non-routable, kind of non-routable IP, and I have a 192.168.2 X, 192.168.2.Y, and this IP is used for the management. SSH is allowed on this interface. So some web management is allowed here. However, for the real production or the real data, for the real operations of the cluster or of the nodes, I have another interface. In this case, I assigned this one 10.100.230. Right? This is another LAN where I have the network interface card attached to this LAN. So me, I am sitting right here. Right? This is me. I'm accessing from the management network. I'm doing all the configuration, but these nodes, they are going to talk to the Manager 1, Manager 2, Dashboard 1, Dashboard 2. So the interaction between these machines are going to be on the production network. Over here, what else I have? On the management side, not management side, but on the production side, this is where I have the edge of the network, including, my firewalls, my ELB, and my WAF. Everything is on that side of things. Okay, so if I come up with my Linux instance for the instance lab 1, you can see that I already tested my connectivity. If I do show IP so address, you will see that I have is the management subnet on one interface, and I have the production network on the other interface. All right. So without much discussion, that now that you have a good understanding of what we are going to try to accomplish and eventually what we're going to verify, let's proceed for the installation. Okay, now let me just talk about a few things here that, what are we really going to, what are we targeting to implement? The installation is broken down into multiple steps. Okay, so in the first one, you are going to install the prerequisites. The prerequisites for the installation is going to be, you're going to install the repositories. This is the repositories where we are going to be pulling some data. Wazuh repository. We are going to install libraries. Some of the libraries and that we need to execute some instructions. So we're going to install the repositories, we're going to install the libraries, and then we are going to download 2 files. 2 files. These 2 files is going to be, one is the install sh. The other one is going to be a file.yaml. So what are these 2 files? Once you download the repositories, you download the libraries, you download these 2 files, you are ready to proceed, right? So then you move to your step 2. On the step 2, 2.1, you are going to open and edit your file.yaml. The real name of this file is config.yaml, and we'll see that once we do the execute the process. So you open up your YAML file. In the YAML file, you are going to have 3 sections. One is going to be indexer. You are going to have another section called server. And you will have another section that is going to be called dashboards. These are the 3 nodes we are going to install. In the indexer, you are going to have name. For every node that is going to be an indexer, you need to put the name in there. Example, I'm going to call this node -1, and I'm going to have another node that we are installing called node 2. For this node, we need to specify their IP address. And for the node 1, I'm going to say 10.100.230.91. For the node 2, I'm going to say IP is going to be 10.100.230.92. Okay? Next section is the server. Same thing. You specify the name. You specify the IP. So name, right? So let me move this one down a little bit. The second, you have your name. For the name, remember one thing: the name that you have here is not the name of the server. It's just a name of the node. The name of, when a server spin up, it says, okay, the server A, when he's joined the cluster, his name inside the cluster is going to be node 1, node 2. For the manager, for the server, I'm going to say this one is going to be, it cannot be the same name. So let me say Wazuh -1. For the second server, I'm going to say Wazuh -2. Next thing is the IP. But if what I have is a separate node, separate server, then the IP of the second server comes in. Example 10.100.230.93. But if you want to install these role of a manager on the same box that you have an indexer, then you need to put the same IP you have already defined at the top. So 91, it's supported. So if these two IPs are the same, that means on the same box you want to run two roles. One is the indexer, the other one is going to be the server, and the name, of course, of those roles are going to be different. In our case, we are going to do what? We're going to say the server 1. The name of the physical name of the server 1 is lab I1. The server 2, the physical name of the box is lab Indexer-2. We are going to bring a third server, and this third server we are going to call it lab manager-2. But remember, this is the physical server name. When it comes to the Wazuh deployment, the role of the lab 1 is going to be node -1. Lab 2, I2 is going to be node -2. When it comes to the server role, on the server 1, we are also going to say Wazuh -1. Just because I want to show you that we can run two roles on the same box. However, for the server 2 role, we're going to do it on the Wazuh -2. And then it comes so on the server side, on the second, we're going to have a name Wazuh -2. Name Wazuh -2. And we're going to have the IP is going to be 10.100.230.93. But you see, when you have a multiple server within a cluster, we must specify what roles and responsibilities of that server is. It can only have two roles. It can either be a master or it can be a worker. But we must specify. So on the lab 1, on the lab 2, we're going to say, we're going to say type master. And on the second one, we're going to say type worker. These two roles, they have different responsibilities inside the cluster. And if you don't remember what these two roles are, take a look on the previous videos. Next up is going to be the dashboards. When you look at the dashboard, same thing, name. We're going to name it dashboard. And, you know, in terms of IP, I'm going to put this one on the 230.91. That means this box is also going to have the role of dashboard. So on the server 1, lab 1, we are installing 3 roles: indexer, manager, and dashboard. On the server 2, we are installing the indexer role. And on the server 3, we are installing the server role. And, you know, as we progress, we are going to see that we can expand and add more into the mix. All right. Any questions so far? All right, guys. So let's take 5 minutes break. Let's take 5 minutes just so you take a coffee, come back knowing clearly what are we going to do. As you're taking your coffee, try to visualize what I said, because when we come back, I want to get questions if you don't understand, because if you don't get what we're doing now, you are going to lose the train once we start putting the codes. Okay? So once we have, so another review, plan your network. So how the IP is going to look like, what is your management IP, what is your data subnet, design how many servers, machines you are planning to bring into your initial setup. You need to think about high availability and everything. Once you have your numbers of servers defined, ensure that your servers, they have the right specs, the right CPU, the right cores, the right RAM, the right disk size, IOPS, and everything else based on the roles you want to install on each of the server. On each of the server, you can install 1 or 2 or combinations of roles. In terms of roles, you have 3 roles you can install. The indexer, which is the database. The manager, which is really the engine that is doing correlation and rules firing and everything. And you have the third role, which is dashboards, which is the visualization responsibility. You need to know exactly how are you going to distribute, allocate those roles. Inside the manager, you have to know which ones are you going to be the master, which ones are going to be the worker. Not which ones, because you can really have only one master inside the deployment. So once you have that in mind, once you have that documented, IP documented, the server name documented, the roles documented, the structure documented, you install your systems, you get your operating systems installed, and then you are going to get ready for the installation. When we talk about installation in terms of the indexer, which is what we are going to do today, what we need to do is, first of all, you install your prerequisites. That includes your repositories, that includes your libraries that you need, your binaries that you need. And then you need to do a download of 2 files. One is going to be a config.yaml, and the other one is going to be an install.shell, which is a script. Then you edit the YAML file, which is a text file. And what you are going to do inside that YAML file is you are going to write the roles, the IP of the nodes. The indexer, the name, the IP. For the server, you're going to install the name, the IP, and the type of role, and your dashboards, how it's going to look like. So you install it. Well, you configure that text file. And then, once you have your text file, you need to move towards the installation. The installation, first thing is for you to generate a file. It's a tar file. That file is going to, based on what you have on the YAML file, it's going to go read the YAML file, and based on the name and the IPs, it's going to create certificates. It's going to generate random passwords for communications between the nodes. So it's going to create everything required for the installation and everything that is secure for the installation. It's a tar file. And that tar file, you need to take your own method to install it across every single server on your deployment. That tar file is going to be on the same directory where you generated the file. And with that file generated, then you execute the install script along with the name of the role where you installed in the script. So I know I'm going too far, but it's just for you to have an idea on the steps. So let's take 5 minutes. When we come back, and we'll go through those steps, you will know better what I'm talking about. So if you don't have any questions now, it's okay. Take 5 minutes, get a coffee refill, come back, and let me know your thoughts. So see you, take care, see you soon. Enjoy your coffee.